Hey guys, it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel, and I'm here with a new video. So today I am going to be doing my top favorite books that I read in 2020. I have 7 books to talk about. I thought there'd be more, but there wasn't, because I wanted to do this like a top 10 thing, but I couldn't pick 10, so I went with 7. So we're going to do the top 7 books of 2020. Now, I read about 77 books in 2020, and which is pretty good. It wasn't what I wanted it to be, but that's because this year kind of got really screwed up. A lot of things happened, so we're kind of just gonna roll with it. So basically, I'm gonna talk about my favorite books of 2020, and I'm gonna start with the bottom and move up to my favorite book. And so yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, so the first book I have is Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. And I probably butchered that. Sorry, I'm bad at pronouncing things. But, so, this book is number 7, and I really enjoyed this book. It was a good 9/11 recreation, I feel like, because basically what this book is about, it's not really a recreation or anything, but basically what it's about is about a boy named Oscar whose dad died in 9/11. And so what happened is when he's going through his dad's old stuff, he finds this vase, and this vase has a piece of paper and a key in it, I believe. And the piece of paper has black written all over it. And so Oscar ventures out to find anyone with the name Black, last first, doesn't matter, anyone who has the name Black in their name. So he tries going all around the city. His mother doesn't have a clue, but he goes all around the city to try and find where this key goes, who it belongs to, and why this paper is here, and why his dad has it. So it's really, I feel like it's a really good, sweet book, because it's kind of emotional, because he's kind of like upset that his dad is dead, obviously, and it's basically just a bumpy road between him and his mom and his grandma. And he meets his neighbor, I forget what his name is, but he goes out with his neighbor and to find the key owner. And so it ends up really being a good story, and it's really cute. So if you want to, give it a read. Alright, the next book I have is Because You Love to Hate Me by various authors. This is a collaboration with various authors and booktubers. So basically what this thing, yeah, that's what we're gonna go with. What this story is about is it takes, as it says, 13 Tales of Villainy. It follows different villains from stories. Beauty and the Beast, it follows Gaston. The Little Mermaid follows Ursula. Jack and the Beanstalk, and all kinds of different recreations of these fairy tales. So it kind of follows the villains in this and how their stories are told. So it's kind of like one of those twisted tale things, which I really enjoy. And I really enjoy this book. I know it's down kind of low because it's number 6, but I just, other books topped it. Not in like a bad way. They're all good in their own way because they're all really different. So this is kind of where this book ended up. But I really enjoyed this book. I had a lot of fun reading it because it was interesting to see how these the authors wrote the stories, and then the booktubers kind of reviewed the stories and what they liked, and just kind of, it was really nice to see that, because it's like they're giving feedback and we're getting a deeper insight into what the story's about. So I really liked it, and I really recommend this book because you should really pick it up. So yeah. Alright, next book I have is These Shallow Graves by Jennifer Donnelly. And this was one of my favorite books of 2020 because of how I didn't expect to like it. I thought I was gonna hate it because every time I read it, it's hard to explain, but when I read it, the synopsis, because I have to read the synopsis in order to think I will like it. I know a lot of people don't like to know a lot about the books, but I have to, because if it's not a storyline I don't want to read, then I won't pick it up. But this one I was pleasantly surprised with how much I liked it. But basically, this story follows a girl named Jo, and this is set in England 1800s, I think. So this follows Jo, who receives news that her father committed suicide, or what they think is suicide. And so what happens is that Jo doesn't want to believe that her dad committed suicide, and so later she goes to a newspaper kind of printing press place, and she meets this guy named Eddie, who starts talking about her dad and his suicide, and how it wasn't suicide, it was murder. And so what happens then is Jo and Eddie kind of go along on this wild adventure to figure out who killed her dad, bury a lot of uncovered things that were hidden in the past, and why this is happening. And Jo starts to fall in love with Eddie, Eddie starts to fall in love with her, but they're from two different classes, so it'll never work, but they still, you know, kind of love each other. So it kind of follows that. So it's the aspects of like everything I love, like murder, romance, all that together, because I'm a huge fan of murder, as creepy and twisted as that sounds. I like to read about it because, you know, finding the killer is just, it's really interesting and it keeps you guessing. So that's one of the aspects I love about it. And so this book really did it for me because it kind of had all the aspects of what I love. So yeah, you should definitely pick this up. The fourth book I have is Paper Towns by John Green. And I like John Green. He's a really great author. So my favorite, I've only read 2 by him, this being the second one. I read The Fault in the Stars first, and I fell in love with that book, which the question, I was thinking, why is that book not on here? But I didn't get to read it in 2020, which is kind of sad, but because I really like that book. But that's one of my all-time favorite books, not a book of 2020. So, but this book I thought was really good too. And this one follows a boy named Quentin, who has always admired this girl Margot from like afar, and he's never really talked to her. But one night she climbs through his window, and they go on this wild adventure all night long, and then it's really fun for both of them. And then next thing he knows, Margot is gone, and he talks to her parents, and they say she runs away all the time, not to worry about it. So what happens then is he starts going on finding clues to where she is and going to find her because he wants to know what happened to her, make sure she's okay, and all that kind of stuff. But he's realizing now that the Margot he thought he knew isn't really what he thought at all that she is. And it's really great because I really liked the storyline of it. I liked how it followed, you know, they were kind of just going off on this adventure trying to find her. And I mean, the ending kind of tore me to pieces, but you know what, a lot of that happens when I read books because, you know, it always has to pull on your heartstrings. But I definitely really like this book because of many different aspects, because it's kind of just like a cute romance that turns into a lot more than a romance, and it's really good. So you should definitely pick it up. On to my top 3 books. This is number 3, Never Always Sometimes by Adia El Said. So this book, wow, did this book break my heart. So it was, wow, I don't even know what to like explain for it, because it was just pulled at my heartstrings and I cried after reading it. Not many books make me cry. Not many make me cry. But this one made me cry. And so basically this follows 2 best friends, Dave and Julia, who make this never always sometimes list kind of thing. Like, don't do this, always do this, sometimes do this, you know, kind of things like that. So one of the number 5, never dye your hair the color of a rainbow. Number 7, hook up with a teacher. And number 10, never date your best friend. So this kind of follows these 2 kids who start breaking all the rules on this list, and they start doing it. They dye their hair green and pink. They start doing all the cliches of high school, as it's called, and then they kind of fall in love and they hook up, and then it falls apart, and wow, it broke my heart. But I can't say too much more without spoiling the ending, so I'm gonna let you guys figure it out for yourself, because you should definitely pick up this book. This is definitely a worth reading, is what I'm gonna go with. Number 2, we have After the Fire by Will Hill. And this is another one of the books that really kind of like tugged at my heartstrings, because it's such a powerful story, even though it's not like a true story, or at least I'm pretty sure it's not a true story. And it's just one of those stories that kind of like just tug on your heartstrings, which seems to be a lot of my books for some reason. But this story follows a girl named Moonbeam, and Moonbeam is stuck in this camp, and she has been since she was born, or pretty close to it. And for as long as she can remember, she's basically been stuck in this camp. And it's not like a concentration camp like the Nazis and stuff. It's like a religious camp. Like, they worship God, and it was all great until Father John came along. And when Father John came along, all these new rules started happening. You weren't allowed to go outside the gates anymore, and it was kind of just all shut away. And if you disobeyed them in any way, shape, or form, you would get punished. There was a lot of trauma that happened in this camp, and Moonbeam kind of explains to the people that rescued her what it was like, what happened, and what had to be done to get to where they are now, and why everything was happening. And it's a really emotional story, because it's just so crazy to see how this is like how they lived life, and it was just normal to them, but to us, it's not normal at all. So it's definitely worth the read, and you should definitely pick it up, because it is worth it. Alright, and my number 1 book of 2020 is A Tale of Witchcraft by Chris Colfer, which should not surprise you if you've been here a while or seen some of my videos, because I love Chris Colfer. He's one of my favorite authors, and I love everything he's written. So this story is the sequel to A Tale of Magic. So you have to read that one first to understand what's happening in this one. Now, his other series, The Land of Stories, you don't have to read that one first. You can read this one first, or you don't even have to read any of them. But this is definitely, there's a series, so obviously series, read them in order. You know how books work if you're here. So basically this one is about the Fairy Council, Bristol, Tangerina, Lucy, all them coming together, but now they face a new challenge, which is the Righteous Brotherhood. And the Righteous Brotherhood is a bunch of members of this group. I can't remember the exact number. The 333, I believe. 333 members exactly. And the Brotherhood hates magic. It was all locked away, so it wasn't a problem, but now it's coming back out. So what happens is the Righteous Brotherhood is trying to take down Bristol, who has suddenly come into power, and everyone loves her. So they're trying to make her seem like an awful person and just terrible. Like, nothing she does is right, and it's pretty crazy. So what happens is Mistress Mara comes along, and she opens up her school of witchcraft. So a few students from Bristol School of Magic go transfer to her witchcraft school, and Bristol tries to stop them, but she can't. So that causes issues too, and that's about all I can say without spoiling too much. but you should definitely go read his books because he's such an amazing author and he deserves all the love. Those are my top 7 books of 2020, and you should leave a like, comment down below what your favorite book of 2020 was, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!